Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Taylor Sharp, and this is the Dallas chapter of the FileMaker Pro user group. This is our September 4th meeting, and our topic is DDR tools. We'll do our announcements first, but to start off with, let's see. Here's our user group webpage, and this right here is our topic that we have today. But to begin with announcements, to let you know, we are having a transition in our group leadership. Dennis Burnham, that has been a long-time member, has moved to Denver. He's still joining us virtually, but we appreciate him being our co-chapter coordinator for a long time. And moving in to take his place will be Greg Price with AL3 Technologies. They're a longtime FileMaker developer too, and most of you know him from being active in our group. So thank you, Greg, for joining the leadership of the user group. I think most of you are aware that we had FileMaker Engage this last month, and we had a little summary of it at our last user group meeting. And we're kind of on the heels of that right now, and learning where FileMaker is going on a lot of things. And one of the things that we have to know about is FileMaker's understanding our databases. So I'll give you if you're a FileMaker developer, real quickly, the FileMaker Advanced tools give us the ability to create a database design report, and that's what comes natively from FileMaker. And here's an example of the database design report. It gives you a little HTML that explains how your database is put together or structured. It can be useful for a lot of things, but it is only basically just, well, what you get right here. And the usefulness is in what you can do with this. And what we're going to do today is we're going to talk to have some presenters that are experts with some DDR tools that can take a version of this information to analyze our databases in a better way for us to understand and do things. And so we very much want to appreciate our presenters that we have here today to do that. So real quickly, I'm going to introduce all three of them, and then we're going to turn it over. Each one's going to get about a 15-minute presentation, and then we're going to do questions and answers. Our first presentation is going to be Mark LaRochelle with Base Elements. He's the president and founder and chief architect of products there, and has been working there since, or he founded it in 1996 in the San Diego area. They're a platinum member. He's also, and I find this is a discussion we had going a little earlier, he has a background with a BA in music business. It's interesting how many FileMaker developers have some type of music background. Anyway, so Mark falls in those footsteps too. Of course, he's well known. It has been a Mad Dog Award winner back in the days when FileMaker gave those away, and spoken at numerous DevCons. And we appreciate Mark being here. He'll be our first presenter. Our second presenter is going to be Dave Ramsey with FM Perception. He's a developer with Geist Interactive, but is in Ohio right now, or that's where he's from. And he's the founder of Workflow Data Systems, and has been a longtime developer of tools, including being the author of FM Perception that we're going to look at today, as well as other things like damage detector, FM X-ray specs, FM X-ray tables, and many other things. Our last presenter is Vince Minato, who's the developer of Inspector Pro. He's a Beeswax developer, which is another platinum developer for the Claris partners. He's a full-time developer with them and been a master consultant for 20 plus years, and has been a DevCon speaker as well as speaker at numerous FileMaker conferences and user group meetings like this one. And one of the big benefits here is he's the actual author of Inspector Pro, born to an Italian family and grew up in Montreal. And he too has a music background from a while back, with a major in music and minor in physics. So we're glad to have another FileMaker musician joining us here. Supposedly Vince Bonanno is something about sharp knives. I don't know what that's about, but anyway, maybe you can clue us in. And he started out way back in FileMaker Pro 2.0, lived in Arizona and supposedly in California now. So anyway, hopefully all that information is right for backgrounds of our presenters. We appreciate that you guys have taken time to be here. And I am going to turn this over to Mark, who's going to tell us about base elements. So let me stop my share and turn this over to Mark to be the presenter now.
Great, and I'll just say one or two words here before we show my screen. Thank you for that introduction. I just wanted to make a quick clarification. I'm actually the founder of Productive Computing, the Platinum firm in San Diego, but today, just to clear up any confusion, I'm representing Goya and Nick Orr with his product called Base Elements. So we have sort of a strategic partnership going on. Nick is the actual creator of that product, and we are doing a course at Productive Computing University about that product. So it's sort of a strategic partnership there, just for a clarification. I know you knew that, Taylor, but just in case those listening didn't. Okay, so let me share my screen here. Okay. So Base Elements is a solution. It allows you to analyze a DDR. And the solution itself, Base Elements, is an actual FileMaker file. And it runs in FileMaker 18 and 19 and so forth. And essentially, when Nick created this, he had the common problem that we all do when we take a look at the standard DDR. It just isn't complete enough. It isn't whole enough for all the different pieces of information you need to get. So he essentially parsed that DDR and then made sense of it. And he used FileMaker to do, most of that magic. Included in this particular solution is, incidentally, a plugin with the same name called Base Elements. That plugin is also available for free. So the plugin works with the solution hand in hand, and that's what makes the magic happen here with Base Elements. So what I thought I'd do is take a minute here and show you essentially how to create a solution or how to create an analysis from scratch. So I'll just go into standard FileMaker and I'll just do a brand new file. Let's just pick a blank file. Actually, let's pick a contacts file so that it has a little bit more schema. And again, I'm not doing anything that you can't do right now out of the product. So here's a standard boilerplate contact system, complete from FileMaker 19. And then I'll run the DDR up under Tools here, and I'll just create a database design report. And I'll select Contacts. And we keep everything included here. We select XML, and then I like to deselect automatically open report when done because I don't want to be heckled with the XML file. I just want the actual DDR. So I'll do that now and I'll hit create. And then I'll put this on my RAM disk, which is just a temporary storage space for stuff. And then at this point, I'll just kind of put this in the background. Don't actually even need it open at the moment. So here in Base Elements, I've already done a couple of other solutions and I've analyzed them here. But essentially what you do is you simply click import and then you identify the summary.xml file, which we just exported, and then push open. At this point, it's showing you, okay, here's the summary of where your XML has been located. Here's the solution name. And in fact, if you are analyzing a single file solution, it already knows the name. So that's why I put contacts there for me. Then this version string is very handy where if you want to keep track of multiple analyses, you can do that. You can put your own version number. You can put ABC, you can put 123, you can put 1.1, it doesn't matter. Just an organizational tool for you to keep track of the iterations as you do more and more from the same solution. And then here you have the client name. And that's where you'll obviously put either the client name or the department or whatever this particular solution represents. I'll just put PCI for now. And then we'll run that. So it's actually parsing the data and bringing it into this analysis. It also has a handy little notification here at the top right, just to let you know when it's done, because not all imports take the same amount of time. Sometimes they take a lot longer. So when that happens, it's nice to be notified. So this is the main screen. It's called the analysis screen. You could think of it as a dashboard. And this screen really tells you a lot before you even have to leave anywhere. It's just pretty complete in how it works. So The overview, if you take a look at the left column here, you'll see all the different types of elements. We have calculations, custom functions, data sources, plugins, variables, and so forth. And then the count. Those are the count of the specific pieces of information in your system. And then at the very bottom, it totals that count. And this particular column is in blue. It means it's just one of those styles or one of those objects. Then each column going to the right, you have errors, unreferenced, warnings, and performance. And I'll talk about each one of those a little bit as we move along here. Now, from this screen, I can click anywhere and it'll zoom me into that particular detail information. Before I go in to do that, let me just show you some more things happening on the left side here. Under the detail screen, I have just kind of a summary of what we've just done. I can also rename my analysis here if I named it wrong or incorrectly. And then it gives me some other details, such as the version of FileMaker, when it was imported, and so forth. Then over here is a statistics page, which is also very interesting. And I'll take a look at the statistics page on a bigger solution because there's more meat to chew on there. So I'll skip that for now. Then there's a tags area where you can further identify things, a notes area where you can put notes about this analysis. It tells me that there's one file, and then there's no current reports for this particular analysis. Okay, so that's essentially it. So the way I use base elements and our team at Productive Computing uses base elements is essentially there's only a few things that I need to know firsthand when I'm working with a solution. The very first thing I ask is, how complicated is this solution? Let's say we're inheriting a new solution for a customer and we're asked to look into it and figure out if this is something we want to work on or if this is something we can help with. So you want to know the broad scale of it all. So essentially, you can just look in this one number here and say, okay, there's 347 elements. So in the world of FileMaker development, this is pretty much a trivial system. It's going to be very easy. There's not much to it. Then you can also quickly identify, are there any errors in the solution? What is unreferenced? Are there any warnings or any performance issues? And that's what essentially I like to do when I first look at a solution. So when you're in the middle of developing a solution, oftentimes we as developers, we want to clean up our construction dust. We've created a bunch of stuff. We've had some fun experimenting. But then at the end of the day, you want to find out what is no longer being used. So if I click on this unreferenced area here, which shows me 19, it brings me into a list view of all those items that are absolutely unused, but not necessarily completely, because there's a lot to an element, whether it's unused or not. But it's showing me that, technically speaking, in the contacts table, the field called created by is not in use. It's not on any layout. It's not used on any script. It's not being called by another script. I mean, there's just no usage of it. Now, there's other elements to consider before you actually say, oh, I can delete a field. But for the most part, at least in the eyes of the DDR, these fields aren't being used. And that kind of makes sense because these are the default fields. They don't necessarily show up on any layout. As you inspect these and as you analyze your system, and you determine, oh, well, this field technically is something I want to keep, you can click on this fixed checkbox, and that indicates, okay, this has been either reviewed by me or taken care of, something I don't need to worry about from this point forward. So it's a handy checklist. But at any time I want to look at more detail of a particular field, for example, I can just click here on this icon that brings me into the detail view. And then here I get all the information that you'd expect. I've got the name, I've got the base table, any comments that were made on that field when I created it, the data type of the field, whether it's a global or not, and things like that. If this was a calc field, it would show me the calculation. And then, so when you come to understand that all of this is still in a FileMaker file, you quickly realize, well, wait a minute, maybe I can do a find right in this solution. And I think this is one of the strong aspects of base elements. And one of the reasons I like it so much is because you can simply just go into find mode and say, okay, I want to find all the fields in my solution that are text. And it'll bring up that list. And if I want to go to list view, I'll go to list view. If I even want to go to table view, I can go to table view. So in a sense, working with base elements, there's an advantage if you already know FileMaker because it is, in fact, a FileMaker solution. And they don't really go out of their way to hide, the normal tools of FileMaker. For example, I can still see I can even delete the records and things like that. So it's like I'm home. It's like I never left my comfort zone of being in a solution. Now, you'll notice on this particular field, it says referenced by. So technically speaking, this field called first name is referenced by 6 other elements throughout the system. So if I click on that, it will show me that this particular field is referenced by the following elements, and they're various types. You have calculations, layouts, a merge field, and conditional formatting. Those are the different types. And you can continue to dig in and see all the different things that are that it's referenced by or what it's dependent on. Now, at any time, if I go back, I can just click this icon and it brings me back to all my analysis detail from each analysis that I've done. And what I'd like to do now is take you on some more details with some bigger analyses so that we can have more to look at rather than this simple contacts file. So on this main screen, it keeps track of all the analyses, which I just said, but it also summarizes them by either customer or category, depending on how you organize it. So it's all nice and neat here. You can see that I have a solution called Contacts. I've analyzed the Core CRM Pro, and then a larger system here. All right, so what I'll do is I'll take a look at this large system. Now, this system has a lot more elements than the 300 or so that we just looked at. It has 126,613. In fact, this particular solution actually took somewhere around 4 minutes to process and analyze. And I know that some of the other tools, their claim to fame is that it's a lot quicker than this. So if there were some advantages and disadvantages, you know, the huge advantage of base elements that in my opinion, is the fact that it is a FileMaker file. I can do finds and sorts and exports, and I can even get into layout mode and make some changes. But perhaps the trade-off is that it takes a little longer on the larger systems, or maybe even a lot longer on the larger systems to analyze. So as a developer, and just putting on my neutrality hat, you know, those are some of the pros and cons of working with a solution like this versus maybe some of the others you might see today. So with this in mind, 126,000 objects, now we have a lot to chew on, including some errors and some unreferenced things and even some performance issues. So let's go take a look at some other objects here. Not to mention, this is a 33 file solution. So let's take a look at, what it doesn't like about these table occurrences here. So it's identified these as possible problems. So I'll look a little further, and then it shows me that this particular thing has 2 alerts. First, an error, and the fact that it's unreferenced. So the error says this element refers to a table that no longer exists and has probably been deleted. You will need to either remove this reference for the element, reference the table and fix the element, or change the reference to the point to the correct table. So it's chock full of these robust descriptions as to what the error is and potentially how to even fix it, which I really like too. It doesn't just say this is a problem. It kind of tells you what the problem is and outlines what you might do to fix it. I often use quick keys to go back, and I think now is a good time to talk about those. If I hold the Command-Shift left arrow, it brings me back just like you would in a browser. So there's a back and a forth button. Command-Shift right arrow moves forward as well. So those are handy tools that I always use when I'm navigating in and around this. All right, now let's take another example. Let's just say I wanted to find all the fields that were unindexed, because I know that those are potentially hazardous when it comes to performance. So an example of that as a practical find, I'll go into find to the fields, and I've got 5,838 fields in the solution. And I'll go in and look at any one of those fields in great detail. And then you'll notice here, it actually identifies whether the indexing is all, minimal, or none. And, you know, I can find all those that say none, for example, and just do a find. And of the thousands that are in there, there's about 2,000 or so that have indexing currently set to none. And I can also look at other aspects of a field. For instance, if I want to see all the calcs that include a plugin, I can do that. If I want to see all layouts that have elements of a certain type, I can do that. In fact, there's really no shortage of what you can do and how you find things, because again, it is FileMaker. It handles multiple find criteria, ands and ors, mixing and matching. Then I can export it and do all of that stuff. Now, I mentioned a little bit earlier that I was going to talk about the statistics page, and I think that the best way to do that is to do that on this giant system, because this statistics page is something interesting and a little bit more unique. If I look at the statistics of this large system, it shows me here the top files in terms of elements. So when a customer says, I know we have a large system, what are the big areas that you need to focus on? This will immediately tell me, of all the files in the solution, which ones are the heavy hitters, the ones with the most schema. And that's this particular quadrant. Now, this quadrant is a little tougher to understand and probably don't have time to explain it all, but essentially what it does is it identifies the extended privileges in your solution and tells you how many accounts have access to those extended privileges. So really, at a glance, I can see, oh, there's 4 entry points for PHP, 6 entry points for WebDirect, 10 accounts, I should say, but essentially entry points for each one of these technology aspects, which really represents extended privileges. So again, that's more on the security side of things, but it is good to know, just to look, say, okay, what kind of usage are we talking about here? Then over here in this quadrant, we have the table area, and this actually shows us the number of records in the solution, which is also very handy to have. And then finally, the steps over here. This is very interesting, very geeky on this one. It actually shows me the individual script steps, the types of steps, like whether it's a comment or a perform script or a set field, and then the percentage of those steps used within the solution. Now, I mentioned earlier, and I'm running just about out of time here, but I'll go into layout mode, because one thing that I would like to see here is this is 548,000, or is actually 5.4 million. I want to put commas there, so I can just jump into layout mode, just like that. Click on this field here. It's completely open. Even I think even the demo version is open this way. And I'll just put in 1,000 separator here, like you normally would in any FileMaker solution. Go back to the statistics page, and now I've got commas under my table counts, 5,484,000, etc. So that's just a quick example of how it's neat to have that layout option for you, so that you can change this. I could change the colors, I can change the layouts, pretty much do whatever I want with the user interface, still having access to the data. And then finally, the last thing I'll say is, if I had another FileMaker solution, I can actually link to the base tables here in base elements and make my own user interface completely, all part of what the product offers in terms of flexibility and usage as a developer. There's a ton more things that I didn't cover, but I'm out of time. So thanks for listening and having us today.
Okay, Dave, you ready here? Let me pass the baton to you here.
Everybody hear me?
Yes, we hear you
Okay.
now.
Good. Because my unmute button has disappeared. Apparently that turns on automatically when you're sharing. Hi, my name is Dave Ramsey. I'm the developer of FM Perception. I am not a full-time Geist employee, but Geist Interactive functions as my publisher. So I'm an independent developer, and Geist Interactive publishes FM Perception and the related products. So I want to go ahead and open a DDR. The one I'm going to be working with today is from FM Starting Point. It's a non-trivial sized database. Not by no means the biggest thing, but relatively complex. And actually, to open this, I've set FM Perception as the default opener for .xml files. So I can just double click on the summary file, and it imports. And it's done. That's the end of FM Perception's import process. Now, there are two ways that it does this. The first is its native code. So instead of being a FileMaker database, it is written from the ground up, the Mac version in Swift, the Windows version in C#. So native code as close to the metal as I can possibly get. And the second way that it does such a fast import is it does on-demand parsing of the XML. So until you tell it what you're interested in, FM Perception doesn't go further. All it's done is load this DDR into RAM and then stopped, waiting for you to ask it a question. And so I can click on this particular database and go to the tables list and go into projects and look at the fields list. And let me bring up the status field. And then I can say, show me all the references to this. Now is when it goes out and looks at all the layouts, all the scripts, and comes back and tells me, bang, 57 references to this field in fields, layout objects, scripts, value lists, etc. This is the core usage loop for FM perception. It's not designed to do a large analysis and then let you spend a couple of days kind of going through and feeling your way through it. Instead, it's specifically optimized for, I am in my system, I have a problem. My last analysis was a week ago. I don't want to run off of that because in a good day, I can make a lot of changes in 2 or 3 hours. So I'm going to export a new clean DDR, bring that DDR into FM perception, ask my question, get the answer, and be back in my database as quickly as humanly possible. It does a lot of other stuff, but that's really where it's optimized, is for that usage loop. So really more as a companion directly to FileMaker. So these are, actually let me hit a couple of things. Because it's native code, we can do some fun stuff that isn't typical for a FileMaker-based solution. So for example, there are resizable regions, reorderable columns, resizable columns. I really patterned this section off of FileMaker's table view, because to me, looking at a list of data in the table view was always great for finding aberrations, weird things. So being able to sort by a column and then scroll down to find the things like, oh, there's one thing here that's doing an auto entry by serial. That's something that's interesting to me because I thought I'd converted entirely to UUIDs or something like that. Those differences will jump out to you in a good, clean table view. So yeah, even to the point that if you wanted to, if you're in a really small display, you can use FM perception entirely like this. Get rid of all the other stuff until you need it and just say, I'm here. So a double click will drill in and show you the information on that item. And then this arrow in the corner goes back up the hierarchy. But I like doing this because this view gives me a really good sense of the hierarchy and where I am in the process. But the big problem here is that there's no motif or paradigm for being able to sort this data or displaying additional columns of data in this section. I can't display other metadata here. And so that's what this bottom section is. So whatever I'm seeing here in the last displayed column is the same thing that's being displayed here, but now it's in a sortable format. So a single click here drills in, or a double click down here drills in. Okay? So looking at this particular system, I have a whole bunch of queries that I can run on it. I can look at the list of tables, and from the table access the list of fields just for that table, or I can look at all of the fields in total. I can look at the layouts either in their folder structure, so drilling down through folders, or I can say, just show me all the layouts in one giant list. Now, even though it's parsing this stuff on the fly, it is digging deeper and getting things like the total count of layout objects and what triggers are running at the layout level and things like that. Let's see here, scripts. So I can say, here's all my scripts. Let's look at my longest script, that's 270 steps. It's got 23 inactive steps in it. Let's just look at active steps. And in these tables, I like to just be able to see, okay, This is a 122-line script with one comment. Now, if a junior developer has just handed this to me, I'm going to hand it back and say, I want a little more. Give me a little more information. But again, with those reorderable columns, I can do things like, here's the active steps, here's the comments, and this is what I want to look at. This is my UI for my task right now. And later I can reorder them for another specific task to group up just the information that I really care about. Let's see here. So standard script steps. Some of these things are going to look similar to what you previously saw, but presented in a slightly different way. So here's all the script steps that are being called anywhere in the system. And so I can sort and say, oh, look, here's my 7,200 comments. And so if I wanted to check something like, oh, the functionality of the send mail step changed or something like that, and drill in, here are the 65 uses for this thing. Let's see, plugin script steps, standard functions. So basically the exact same list, but with calculation functions. So there were a number of calculation functions that changed their functionality in FileMaker 19. And so we've added a flag for that. So you can jump in, see where that's being used, address those particular things, and get right back into your system. Custom functions. So have you ever migrated a custom function from one system to another and it broke because it was dependent on another custom function that you weren't aware of from looking at the thing immediately? And so because those custom functions weren't moved as a group, the definitions got commented out, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. How would you like to never do that again? So here is this @param, which is a custom function in the SQL Sugar collection of custom functions. And I can drill into that, and it has options to show me where it's referenced, or what functions it's called, or what functions it's called by. But what I really want to do is kind of draw a lasso around all the custom functions that have to move as a unit for me to get this custom function into a new system. And that's the function family. It spiders up and down the call chain and figures out everything that has to go together. So in a perfect world, what I'd like to do is migrate this directly into my FileMaker system. If I select them all in FM Perception, I can right click and say copy for FileMaker. When I paste these 4 custom functions into a FileMaker system, none of the definitions break because we've got everything that's got any kind of dependency on the other custom functions. And so this works the same way for anything that FileMaker supports copy and paste for. So tables, fields, scripts, script steps, layout objects, custom functions, value lists, and the custom menu trio. So that's fun. Here is global variables, all the global variables that are referenced in the system. So if you've ever had that problem where one particular global variable is getting stomped on between point A and point B, the value is changing and you don't know why or where, you can drill into the particular custom function or the particular global variable and see every single place where it's referenced. So here are the 7 places where it's explicitly set, and I'm going to double check these as well, just in case they were doing something with a let or an evaluate or something like that, where that reference might not get caught. Now, let me talk real quickly about this sidebar here. So even though we're not in the layout section, I've clicked on a layout object, and here is the information that I've got on that layout object as far as its location. There's also this fun region section, where basically what FM Perception does is it breaks up the layout into a tic-tac-toe board. So 9 regions, and there's a 10th region, which is off-screen right. So if I think there's a problem with this one, but when I click on it, it says off-screen right, I know that object isn't rendering on my layout when I'm there. So upper left, lower right, center, that kind of thing. The other thing that is really helpful here is this hierarchy section. And the hierarchy section, basically on any FileMaker object or sub-element of an object, a tiny reference inside an object, you'll get this hierarchy section. And what this tells you is, starting from the beginning of a system, how do I find the thing that I'm currently looking at? What is its hierarchy? So this is in this file, in the layout section, in these two folders, on this layout, and then this layout object. If it was on a slider, on the third slider panel, that would be displayed there. And so you wouldn't have to do as much hunting to find this thing on your layout. I would love to be able to have a button there that takes you directly to FileMaker. Not an option yet. We'll see, maybe at some point in the future. Let's see here. So most of these are driving off of our basic lists, accounts, and privilege sets, tables, fields, that kind of thing. Then we get down into these slower queries. And slower queries are at the bottom of the list. I don't want you accidentally clicking on them. And they are slower because they look at more of the XML. So in order to do unreferenced objects, you first have to generate a list of all of the objects in a system, then a list of every single possible reference to an object, and then cross-reference them. Other solutions will do this during their initial import process, but FM Perception puts that off. So it doesn't spend that time until you say that's something that you're interested in. And so unreferenced objects, indirection sources, broken references, calculations. So this particular system has, I think, about 100,000 calculations. Oh, I'm sorry, 13,939. And so drill in, and here is my longest calculation. Let me jump ahead a little bit here, finally to the report card. So other systems will kind of start from their kind of report card, aggregate a ton of data interface. But because of all the work that's required to do that, again, FM Perception puts that off until you ask for it. So I built the report card based off of my experience as a consultant for a long time. It was built around the idea of, I'm sitting down with a new customer that I've never spoken to, or I've never met with. I've never seen their system, but I somehow convinced them to get me a DDR. And so I could dump it in here, and I've got just a couple of minutes before this meeting starts. What can I have to understand the scale and scope and complexity of this system as quickly as humanly possible? And so in just a second, you can see my cores cranking along. And the primary reason that this is at the bottom of the slow list is because it effectively runs every single query above it and then aggregates that data. So here's this, and so we can see, okay, there's this many fields. I'm curious about serialized fields. Are they doing serialized or UUIDs? How many of these are global? Container fields, repeating fields. There are valid uses of repeating fields. I don't want to flag these as an issue, but if they've got 300 repeating fields, that might be a problem. I can actually click on any of these items and see these things. And so I could look at the names and go, okay, I see what they're doing there, not a problem. So calculated fields, unstored versus stored, layouts, scripts, single step buttons. So these are buttons that do something other than perform script. If that number says 2,486, I know that this is going to be fun to work with. We saw the global variables list earlier. There's 97 global variables. But one of the things Todd asked for was the ability to tell what the global variable touched, because people were making very elaborate global variable systems. And so this particular system here, while there's only 97 global variables, it touches 395 scripts, which means 50% of the scripts read from or write to global variables, which means before I can edit any of this customer's scripts, I first have to understand their global variable system. This is going to increase the complexity of any work that I want to do with their scripts. And so if you wanted to save this out for reference for emailing to someone, you can just export it as a big chunk of HTML that doesn't require FM Perception to look at. So I think I'm out of time. I apologize if I ran over. That is FM Perception. Thank you very much.
Thank you there, Dave. We appreciate that. Vince, I'm going to pass the on to you. So, oops, I hit the wrong.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, I'm hearing you fine.
Okay, cool. So let me just start with, I'm gonna run through some slides that I prepared because 15 minutes is not gonna do justice for any of these tools, including Inspector. So I'm gonna, let's see, can I hide this? Let me get rid of this. There we go. All right, so this is 7.1. We continue to evolve the product, and now we have the faster pace of new features coming hopefully every quarter. And so 7.1 supports the 19 release. And let's see here. So what I have here is we have some new features that are in 7.1, so I'll go through those, and then I'll dive into the solution and give you a tour. So we have this cool new progressive dashboard that we've added. We have Slack notifications. A lot of the features in the inspector are geared towards team development. Because at Beeswax, we are a large crew these days. What we're doing is we're not solo developers on a project. We normally have 2 or 3 or 4, sometimes even more people working on a project. And now with FileMaker web integrations, we have our web team coming and helping and doing JavaScript development. So the projects are collaborative. And so we have a lot of collaborative features. Inspector gets hosted on a server, whether you want to use it yourself or as a team. You can create accounts for different people. So that's the inspiration behind this. And so we have built-in Slack notifications for different purposes. We added the the Siri shortcut donation thing that showed up in 19 with this cool script monitor, which I'll demo in a little bit. We have tags, we have notes, we have Logicator searching. Logicator's built right in. We have this whole concept of extra information that you can choose to turn on and process if you want to see that. And so I'll show that as well. So this is our progressive kind of dashboard. So on the left side, you have any number of solutions or clients, systems that you work with, and then progressively in different kind of snapshots that you take of an analysis. They're documented, and then down at the bottom, you can see kind of a chart, both of items and total counts of calculations, dependencies, plus you have overlaid on top of it problems in different areas. Now, what's nice about this is you get this little reward of smiley emoji if you get to the nirvana of getting rid of all your problems. So some of our team members actually really love that. But the point is that as you refactor code, you can get a global kind of view of like, are you removing code? Are you simplifying code? Are you increasing problems? And so this was actually Inspector looking at Inspector over time. And so we had grown the code, and then we introduced a lot of problems because we were bringing over code and we were kind of cleaning it up as we go. But then we made a concerted effort, as you can see here, to kind of clean up everything and get to zero problems. So this is what we call our progressive dashboard. We also have again, the Slack notifications. So Slack notifications come in all shapes or forms. Basically, you can send a Slack notification when an analysis begins, when it's deleted, when something gets fixed. That's the most popular thing. When you add a note, you can actually add a note and it goes into the Slack channel. So that's pretty cool. Again, the Siri donation shortcut in 19 shows up with a little microphone. This is a view to the scripts view. The script monitor is kind of cool. You can go to the script monitor and generate like like only specific scripts or all scripts, and then you add some code to your file, and then when you export this file and host it on one of your servers, what will happen is when your code runs that script, it'll light up the node on this monitor. So for example, if you had critical you wanted to have visibility into a critical system that runs an import or processes some data or creates some new records, you can have this monitor running even without that system open, and it will generate a little bleep. It actually has sounds as well, and it'll light up the nodes, and this is a D3 visualization. So it's pretty cool. We use it on just to monitor certain things. We have the ability to add tags. So again, this is a collaboration feature. You can add a tag to any element. You can add multiple tags. You can add tag to one item or a group of items. So you can have, and it shows up here that it has a tag. If you click the tag, you get to see the tags. You can search on the tags. So, and this is the logicator search. So for example, I tagged a bunch of items to be deleted with this tag to be deleted. And then I can search on that tag and find all those items that have that tag. This is the view to something we call extra information. And we would need a lot of time to dive into each one of these areas. But basically what we do is we slice into the DDR and extract all these bits and pieces in a normalized way so that you get the information you're looking for at the fingertips. So for example, I'll go and show you a couple of these, but later when we go look at the demo here. So let me just that down for 1 second. Okay. This is a view to layout destinations, and there's like 5 different kinds. So you have go to layout original, go to layout by selected layout, and then you have go to layout by name or by calculation, or go to layout current layout. And so when we normalize these, we also find all the references to it. And so on the right over here, you have the number of references. So if I ever wanted to, for example, delete a layout, I might want to consult this layout destination information and see, am I using any indirection for layouts, either by name, by calculation, and then I could go look at it down at the bottom. There's a link. I can click it. It takes me to the script, to the step, and it shows me exactly where that reference is. If I didn't have any go to layout name or number calculations, then I would have a higher degree of confidence to be able to say this layout is not referenced. I could delete it. However, there are still nuances to everything, and so you might be using a layout in a data API call or something like that, and we have ways to also address that need. Progressive dashboard, Slack notifications, we covered all these. Let's go in and take a look. So this is Inspector, and this is the dashboard that you're presented with. And so I'm just gonna cover some of my, my favorite features about Inspector. So I'm gonna go look at this really large system, and I'm going to look at layouts. And so this dashboard here, at a quick glance, you have total numbers of items on the right, and then the stuff in gray with this gray bar tells me that I have, for example, 32 base tables that are unreferenced. So I have 8% of my total base tables, 32 of them are unreferenced. I can navigate in 2 ways. I could, for example, I could click on this side and see the layouts that are unreferenced, that it says it's unreferenced, or I can click on this number and show all layouts. And then you can click on the warning and see all layouts that have problems, and so on and so forth. So if I go to layouts and I go look at, let's say, styles, this wealth of information here, for example, if I wanted to optimize a layout, let's pick this layout, tells me that I have default styles, theme styles, layout styles, local styles, and conditional formatting objects. If I look at this and say, wow, 70% of the objects on this layout, 230 of them, have been touched and modified, but have not been saved as a style. And I want to optimize this layout to be more efficient. I could go in there, I could click on this number and it would navigate me to those layout objects. And I would then be able to go through and make those changes to each one of those styles. So that's a common thing I like to do. So let me look at problems here. Let me see how I'm doing for time. Okay, good. So if I go to here, I have, I can get to problems in two ways. From the dashboard, I can look at all my problems from here, or I can look at the calculation problems that exist. You can also get to it from here. Same thing, I can save out a report. If I wanna look at, let's say there's a bunch of field problems, this coffee cup is basically, this auto enter is disabled. And so it's a dormant error. And it tells me that, you know, this auto enter calculation for this in this base table here has got a problem. I can click on here, it'll take me to that field, and I could go and look at an auto enter and go find that calculation. So let's see here, this one here. Okay, that's this one here. And so I could go look at that, or I could look at the actual calculation in the calculation. Oh, this is telling me, sorry, this is telling me that the table for the context of that calculation is missing. And so I would go into the solution, open up that file, go look at that table, go look at that auto enter calculation. Again, it's dormant, so it's not enabled, and I would fix it. Once I fix it, you'll notice here on the left, I have Slack open. And if I could, if I select this, I could mark it as fixed, and it'll send a Slack notification to my team as to a problem being fixed. So that's pretty cool. Let's see. So another cool thing we have is if I'm in a system and I want to do some like global search. So this is a massive system, and I want to search for this string email. I can search across all calculations. I can search across schema, or I can search across both. I can choose whether it starts with, contains, is, and then I can perform a search, and it's during a search across all schema and all calculations and return to me the first 10 items that match. So for example, if I wanted to see, let's say all the scripts that have the word email in them, I could expand that list, and now I'm looking at all the scripts. Where is it? Over here. There's all my scripts that have that string email in it. So and then if I want to, I can click here and I go navigate to that script. So global searching is comprehensive. We have global searching across schema, all calculations, and you can have let's see, you can have searching using Logicator in the solution. Like Dave was showing, we also have in our scripts list here percent of comments, percent white space, percent disabled. So sometimes what I like to do is just peruse the list of all the scripts and just kind of take a look here and see if there's white space and comments here, a nice hefty kind of percentage here, which is looking good. So that's that. Manual references. Let me explain what that is. So let's say I have some layouts here, and I have let's say this layout here that seems to have 0 references, which you would think maybe I could delete that layout, right? So I have this layout, and if I go and I wanna, let's say this layout is being used by something. I could do what is called a manual reference. And what that does is, you could put a note here, don't delete, it's used by the data API, right? And when you do that on the current record, or you could do it on a found set, when I add it, it adds a reference of 1, right? So what's cool about this is when I do another analysis, that reference will carry forward. So like I was showing before, if you have a lot of analyses, once you've done it, you've marked it, it carries forward. So that's really cool. Let me show you another cool feature we have when you run an analysis. This is where you can check off some of these additional features. One of them is called table distance. So if I go look over here, and I go look at this layout that's got some objects on it, and some of them really, I mean, it's kind of, I did this just to demo, but never would anyone ever build a solution that looks like this, right? So I basically put some fields on the layout that come from 6 hops away. And so this is telling me, this column here tells me how many hops that this field is coming to get resolved. We have some that are 1 hop away. We have some that are 4 or 5 hops away. We have other things to tell you that this field in this merge text, there's a unstored calc and there's a summary field in that merge text. So there's all kinds of little, little tidbits of things in there that are really cool. Let me go back to that other system. Let's look at a field in the invoice. This one here in the let's see, focus IDs. This one, where is it? Oh, let's pick anyone. This one here. We have some fields in here. This focus ID field in this database. I have 21 references of it. If I click on it, what I'll get is I'll get a window, a tearaway window, tell me all the places where that field is referenced. But the cool thing is that we get these like green targets, and those green targets tell me like, hey, if you're interested to know where that field might be modified, like it's enterable on this layout, it's being used as a target in this set field, right? So like I could zero in on these areas here, these ones and this one, to see where that data is being modified. So in terms of troubleshooting, it's a great way to kind of dig in there. So this is just a quick view of references. If you look at dependencies, they have a green header at the top, and these are all the things that field depends on. Again, a little tip: if you have dependencies and references, the more critical ones are the references. So if you have 0 references, then nothing references that item, so it's safer to delete. I think I covered all the things I wanted to cover. I'm 17 minutes in. I can show you one last thing about the thing about the script monitor, and then we'll take questions. So here's my script monitor. I generated a DDR. I brought it into Inspector, and there's a PDF that describes how to do this in Inspector to generate this output. But basically, I have this file that's hosted, and when I run a script or something, it'll light up the nodes that all the scripts that it triggered in the path of running that event. So I'm going to try and add an event here. So I don't know if you hear the beeps and stuff when it's running. I can cancel it, and so anyway, that's script monitor, and this is running in California. I'm in Germany right now, so there's a latency there, but basically I could just leave this file open, and anybody that runs any script in this system, I would see the nodes being lit up. Again, oh yeah, one last thing. I know I'm running out of time, but here I just wanted to show you the extra info. This is all the extra info. These little icons here show me that information is in there with regards to indirection. So here's all the steps in FileMaker. If I wanted to see all the places I have allow user abort, control, and stuff like that, these are all tearaway windows that I can keep open. Here's the layout destination one, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, again, 15 minutes doesn't do justice. I'm sorry, I'm over. I will pause here and return to questions, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you guys. We appreciate it. We're gonna go to our questions and answers time. So everybody is on mute right now, so you have to unmute yourself to ask a question. So feel free to jump in here and start asking questions.
I have a question for Mark.
Yes.
Nick once demonstrated something in base elements about being able to do something to copy and paste styles and I've forgotten what that was. Can you give a quick tutorial on that?
Sure, be happy to. Yeah, I think you're talking about this clip. It's like a clip manager, clip library, if you will. It's
Right.
something that's built in. So let me just show my screen again real quick and I'll show you that. Here we go. Okay, you should see my screen again.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So in the product, you'll see an icon here that says clips. And this is essentially a library of, it's an area where you can store either your favorite script steps or your favorite schema, whether it be a list of fields that you always like to use, or even styles, as you mentioned. But let's just take a look. What I'll do, just to keep it simple, because it works with essentially any schema that you can copy, you can essentially put in this clip manager. So let's just take that simple solution that I had. Yeah, this is the one with 347 elements. And I'll give you an example. If I go to the fields listing, I can copy using this copy button. And I believe I can actually just go right to scripts and paste it. Let's see. Well, let me stand by. Let me just put in, let me open up a test file. There's a good way to do it. All right, so here's a blank test file I just created. And if I go here into, define database, I can now paste those fields in there. So essentially, and what I've showed you is sort of a roundabout way of explaining the question you had. Essentially, what Base Elements has allowed you to do is he captures the clipboard, the XML clipboard that FileMaker uses, and then allows you to use that back into, in fact, let me just go back here to the actual solution. Let's see, where did it go already? I lost it here. And I'll copy those scripts back into the clip manager. So go back to define database, copy all those. I'm just basically hitting the copy key. And then I'm going back here to the clip manager, and I should be able to just paste.
Well, for today, I think I
Yeah.
get talking
Yeah,
about.
but you get the point. Yeah, you can absolutely keep all your clips organized, whether it be styles, layouts, and so forth. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Mark.
Sure thing.
I have a question. I use a lot of indirection, like I'm sure a lot of you do. And one thing I use is like custom functions that give you the internal ID, for example, of the layout or the field or script or whatever. And I use that number, so, or the table name. So instead of saying, if table name, if we're on the layout based on this table, then I'll say if we're on a layout based on table ID, and I'll use this ID. Do any of the products have any way to track the use of a field, table, script, etc. by the internal ID?
Yeah, this events inspector has the DDR ID of the layout, the script, the field, whatever, and that's there, and you can definitely use it. I mean, I'm just going to check and see if it's searchable by the ID, but it's definitely surfaced in the list of objects. So I'll get back to you.
Yeah,
And also, is it included in the referencing? In other words, if it's that ID is referenced somehow. I don't know if that's even possible.
I don't have it searchable, but it would be easy to expose it because we're using Logicator. So just drop the field on the layout, you can search it. In my case, in terms of referenced, it goes by the layout and it knows that it's referencing that particular layout because the mechanics of it are by the ID actually, right? So
I usually will put in a comment that, you know, originally, you know, and put originally colon, I'll put the name of the field or the layout or a script or whatever, so I can human read what it, you know, what script or layout it's referring to. If it changes, obviously it won't be accurate, but the standard comment that had the name of that layout or script or whatever, would that be picked up as indirection, or would it have to be text for it to be picked up?
Where are you putting that name?
Like, for example, I'll say FM. There's a.
So where are you putting the name?
Like as a comment after I have custom functions that give me the name if given the ID, or give me the ID,
Okay.
vice versa. And so after that function, which isn't really human readable, if layout is 23, I'll put a comment that says originally contacts data entry. And so that phrase contacts data entry is in a comment. So I have a feeling that that wouldn't be picked up by your indirection. Your indirection is looking for text by that name or whatever, correct?
Yeah, I don't know. I'll let Dave and Mark comment on a little bit. I don't want to hijack the conversation here, but it's a difficult topic. I mean, because indirection can come in many flavors. So Dave, you say a few words.
So as Vince was saying, FM perception will surface those ideas for you. It is searchable and filterable by that. But as far as generating a reference based upon that, no. Primarily because, if for no other reason, the place where you are actually generating that reference is in a custom function that is being handed a variable. So in the place where you're actually doing the work, the reference doesn't exist. It's all been abstracted away. And so what you've got in theory is now a custom function that you would like to say is an indirection source, but it's not going to generate references, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it, yeah.
Yeah, and base elements has the same thing. It identifies indirection, but it doesn't go and actually look, because a lot of indirection happens at runtime. While the script is being produced, it's grabbing a variable, and that variable might have a name. That name is not identified until the script actually runs. So indirection is sort of an impossible thing to cross-reference in a sense.
Right.
There are aspects of indirection that can be cross-referenced, such as if you use the name, if you end up putting an if statement and you've got all your layout names specifically identified within a calc, in that sense, it's identifiable, but you're really just sort of rolling the dice. Being any of these creators here of these inspection tools, you're totally rolling the dice, making bold assumptions that a name is actually referencing something.
Right.
So anyway, I think you get the point, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one more comment I want to say is that I think we're going to see more indirection, right? With the JavaScript web viewer capabilities, where you can call a script and call functions in the JavaScript, etc. I mean, there's all kinds of things. I mean, the data API or whatever, or Claris Connect calling a script in your system. That system is not documented at all in the DDR. The DDR knows nothing about it, right? So you have to find a way, and people come up with clever ways to do things. For example, one of our team members has a script that says layouts via indirection, and basically has a go to layout step with that layout. And so when it happens is it's documented in that script that layout is referenced by that script, but it's just telling us like, hey, don't delete this layout because it's referenced by some other system, Tableau, whatever. So that's kind of tricks that we have, but you know, you got to stay organized and on top of this stuff. Okay, I'll shut up.
Good. No, Vince, that's a great point. And just to further clarify that, anyone who's working with Claris Connect or Data API, traditionally, in order to gain access to that, you actually have a layout with fields presented, because that's how the security model works in FileMaker. So in a sense, so long as that field that you're contemplating on removing, if it's on a layout, then it's suspect as being something you actually need. And then you can further diagnose if that layout was used on an API for the purposes of an API. But Vince, good point on all that stuff.
I have a question. Along similar lines, something that we find is a problem, well, I find is a problem in our development environment with our team is someone will rename a field, well, need to rename a field. I'll see a field that someone has misspelled, you know? Drives me berserk, right? Except I cannot rename a field that someone else has created because someone might have used it in a SQL query. So one of the things I'm always wanting to be able to do is do a search somehow that's actually just searching the text, you know, or that if I say I'm looking for a field name, I mean not only filed the field name that's via, you know, all of the field references, but search for the text of this field name as well. Because if I'm going to correct the spelling of this field name, which again just drives me berserk when it happens, and instead of having to track down who was the person who added this and is it safe or has anyone else done anything with this and used it in any way that is going to break if I correct it, which of your solutions can best handle this or which ones can handle it at all? Good.
Yeah.
I think we can use all the, I think we just put our thumbs up. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think all solutions.
Yeah. They've all got something to do it.
Okay. Next question. I've used all three solutions and I love them all for different reasons. I know it depends on what I'm doing, what I'm trying to get to the bottom of. But in an environment like ours at Harmonic, where we have a team of developers, some have, and I have, at one point in time, I was, this is, you know, a deep, ancient, horrible time in my life where the only computer I had was a PC. And my favorite program at the time was Vince's. Again, this was like 1999 or something, you know, way back when. So I had to create my own version of this. Unfortunately, after I built it, I forgot how I built it. And it was really very cool, but then I could never add another solution to it. So I went back to using, well, got a real computer again and so on. But anyway, so I've had various versions of this, and internally at Harmonic, one of our developers has actually built their own version that's kind of a bit of this and a bit of that and a bit of this in terms of what that developer wants. But what I really want is something more cohesive and a better environment for multiple developers to be able to use, perhaps even using multiple tools and having them centralized in a way that other developers can use them. Because one of the things that I come across and others in my teams come across are information, metadata that's not available in FileMaker, it's not available in the DDR, which is when was this added? You know, and I know that if you do different versions and, you know, you grab DDRs over time, you can sort of start to collect that. But what we're really looking for is a better way to more systematically, regularly, and reliably gather that information for our ongoing development projects. So we can look and say, hey, when was this, you know, when was this script added? Well, of course, you know, we should all be commenting our stuff, but how do you comment, how do you best comment the addition of a field? Yeah, if someone remembers to add a comment to the field or to the comment part of the field, you'll get it. But if somebody forgets, who knows when that field was added and how long it's been in there. So if any of you kind of tackled that creation date issue for objects in the systems, that's part of the question. The other question is, have any of you considered like a smorgasbord collection for a development group of your various solutions? And I'll leave it at that because I could go on for a long time with a number of other questions. So leave it there.
I'll just comment that one of the things we took to FileMaker two winters ago was that request to have created by and modified by just be attributes of every field and every script, maybe even.
When was a layout added?
Yeah.
That's another one. You know, you can put an object on the layout that tells you, but that assumes everyone remembers to add said object.
Right. I mean, created dates and modification dates apply to records. There's no reason why they couldn't apply to fields and scripts and layouts.
Mm-hmm.
Preaching to the choir. Anytime FileMaker gives us the information, we're going to start working with it. So
Right.
in the new XML that was introduced in 18, expanded in 19, we do have the modification timestamp and modification username and account name. But that's for the last modification as of the time the export was done. We don't have the creation information, at least at this point. What you're going to be, so my guess is what you're going to find is that that kind of functionality is going to be forthcoming from various solutions, because we now have the basic dates.
Mm-hmm.
We have to run through 30 different versions of an import to get it. If you are going through that kind of data to find out when a particular item appeared somewhere on the list, you're going to want one of the FileMaker-based solutions, because they process multiple DDRs into one shared location. FM Perception always looks at one at a time.
Thank you.
I'm not home. From a point of view of an inspector, I agree with Dave, what Dave said, which is, you know, in the new version, save as XML, that stuff is there. However, if you've got 3 people working and one person, you know, writes a script and then generates, you know, a save as XML, and then someone else changes it, and then the third person changes it yet again, when that person runs it, you won't have the history of the second person changing it. It'll be lost.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, there's no snapshot, or I kind of put in a request for micro DDRs, where every time a change is made to the schema, a micro DDR would be dropped on the server, and then you could harvest those little snapshots and say, really, this thing got changed by this person, then this person, then that person. Unfortunately, we're stuck with you know, what we have, which is, it's nice that you know who modified it, and there's a modification count, so you know, you can tell that you know, if this person did it and then the modification count is just an increment of 1, then you know that this other person changed it. But then once it gets past that, it gets a little bit more complicated than that. But anyway, so we don't have true audit logging of the schema. On top of it, we don't even have audit logging. You know,
Hey, don't get me started on that one.
No. I figure I'll be retired by the time I see transactions and audit logging ever.
There you go.
So anyway, Mark?
I throw DDR and from your mouth to God's ears. That's
Yeah.
I come from part of my life is the world of AWS, and when you think about systems in general, auditing, and whether it be an audit log of data and records or an audit log of schema and developers, in either case, in today's day and age, this is a big topic. So I would say that there's probably already pressure on Claris to do these types of things, especially if they want to continue their exploration in larger systems and larger companies and that kind of thing. So, you know, it's just a matter, I guess, of priorities and all that. And I don't know all the internals of what's happening at Claris, but I would imagine your request, whether it be from a pure developer standpoint and practical to say, geez, it would really be nice to know if it was Sue that did the change or Larry and when, versus, hey, these are important, secure systems handling enterprise level data, and there needs to be a proper audit log, whether it be on data or schema. In either case, in the world of AWS, everything is audited and tracked ad nauseum. And I think that kind of maturity, that kind of process is probably just forthcoming, and it's a matter of time. So, but unfortunately, today's, yeah, could be, yeah. Yeah, exactly. Based on current track record, yes.
Well, at least I'm glad I'm not alone in what I'm thinking about, what I want. Thank you.
Sure.
dreaming big, I would like that at some point that we're able to use these tools in a reverse direction too, that if there was something we saw needs change, that and we could change it in the tool that would then push back to FileMaker. And I know that's there's all kinds of things to that, making that probably not easily possible, but in the future, it would be nice if we'd be able to have tools that can say, hey, we can use the tool to say, let's go back and change some things in FileMaker from the tool, because we can group changes together in the tools better than we can navigate around manually changing it in FileMaker.
Yep.
In theory, the pieces that are necessary to do that are slowly showing up. Based upon the things that they presented originally at DevCon when they first started talking about this new XML, I thought they'd be done already. They're not. And other things keep kind of getting in the way. But somewhere on the horizon is the ability to round trip the XML and apply those changes to a live system. Exactly how that happens, what mechanism allows it, and what tools are going to be able to do that and when is all very, very hazy. But someday, I'm not even going to say someday soon, someday I think you will be able to accomplish that.
Are you guys going to all release new versions tomorrow now that you've all seen each other present?
It's an ongoing effort.
Yeah.
I mean, with Claris, saying that they're going to do more frequent releases, we all have to stay more current, keep our, whatever's new has to get updated, etc. So, yeah.
Well, I just want to say that this is a presentation or a meeting that I've wanted us to do for years already, and I'm glad we finally did it. It was great, and I applaud all of you.
Thank you guys for presenting. We appreciate you here. We've kind of reached our 12:30 time and gone a little over, but we really appreciate, I know there was a lot to cram in a short time, and we really appreciate you guys sharing these tools to you. For those of you who don't know, all these tools are in the marketplace, so feel free to go to the Claris marketplace to either purchase them or try a trial version if you want. And these are indispensable tools if you're a full-time DDR developer and need to analyze databases. So,
and everyone's invited to Taylor's house for lunch.
We just get over COVID anyway. I guess for those of you who didn't hear, our restaurant that we meet at has closed, so no matter what, we won't be going back there. So I don't think we'll probably be meeting until maybe January 2021. Who knows? But until then, we will keep doing these meetings virtually, and we appreciate everyone joining us. And we look forward to seeing everyone next month. Will be Harmonic Data is going to do add-ons. So add-ons, JavaScript. So come see what Harmonic has to say.
Should be fun.
Certainly.
Cool.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for having us. Thank you for doing this. It's been great to communicate these tools out to the community. And I think I don't know, speak for the others, but I think if you're a developer, you got to use something. Get them all. You have different strengths, but if you're a professional developer, you got to be using something. Otherwise, you tear your hair out. So anyway, thanks again for organizing it and having us.
Agreed.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye. Genau. Ciao.